Hello and welcome to another audio analysis. In today's video we're taking a look at the track The Tide by the Swedish rock band Smash Into Pieces. This is the third single following on from their most recent album Disconnect, which certainly saw them move away from those electronic sounds a little bit more that we did see on Arcadia and go for something a bit more powerful, which really fit with the theme of the actual album. Certainly across the first half of it we saw these beings of power being brought through in the lyrics and the actual styling of the music, so it was a great album that if you haven't heard you really need to do so. Since then they've actually released tracks such as Sleepwalking and also 6 Feet Under, which was their entry onto Melodifestivalen, which is almost like the Swedish pre-competition to decide who they will be sending to Eurovision. Unfortunately the band didn't win it, but they did come a very respectable third, which for a rock band was certainly very impressive for a competition that typically tends to send more pop-based or very unique sounding singers as opposed to actual rock bands. And now we do have this third single, which looks like it may continue the ever-running story of APOC, the Apocalypse DJ, who is also their drummer and effectively their mascot, but they've built their world around him, and this is why they're a band that really do focus on putting a lot of production value into their music videos. They serve just as much importance as a lot of the music they produce. So will this track prove to be as thunderous as a crashing wave or simply be as weak as a trickling stream? Let's take a look at exactly how it sounds.
Can't stop the time from coming. Can't stop the time from coming. Can one man carry that power and keep his good intentions? Can one man shoulder the burden and stay with his intentions? Control, that is all he knows.
Okay, so interestingly enough, we've got some really cool things coming in at the start of this. We have seen in the previous album they touched on power, and they're keeping that theme running with this, the idea of one man carrying that power. So almost like a leader in a government or something like that. So could potentially be looking at really big figureheads in the political scene, and certainly they are a band that have focused quite heavily on wars and things in the past as well, with songs such as Vanguard. So looking like that can be coming through. Almost like this idea of tides of war, tides of blood. So tying those two in from this tide that is coming in, something that ebbs and flows. And we're seeing straight away this idea of kind of not really knowing somebody's intentions, whether they're good or bad, and that taste of control is all that somebody knows. So we can see just these ideas of power being brought in through many of the lyrics already.
Can't stop the time from coming. No use in running from the darker side. It's closing in on you. Can't keep yourself from turning. No use in fighting who you are inside. There's nothing you can do against the tide.
Okay, quite an interesting chorus we have got here. So we see this idea of being washed over with darkness, this darker side. You can't run from it. It's just like a wave that's going to crash onto you. So kind of focusing again on this idea of dark intentions, or someone that's just naturally dark at heart. They don't have that good bone in their body almost. And it's almost like it's kind of like this message to somebody. Can't keep yourself from turning. So I like the idea of they've kind of used the tide, because again, you look at tides of blood, you think vampires, this idea of being turned into something. So there's a lot of really interesting points that you can pull into this track just from these lyrics alone, without it kind of going too far into this almost Blade or Twilight vampiric feel to the actual track.
Can your heart handle this pressure, or will you let the water crush you? Can you take the pain with pleasure, or will you give in like they all do? One taste of control, that is all he knows.
I love that lyric there. You're waiting in silence, creating the sirens, we're heading into war. So we can see that the lyrics are really starting to pull this in. I also love seeing Chris Adam really upping these vocals, going for those normal growls, but then taking it up a notch. Really just showing this escalation of this darkness creeping over somebody, this control kind of being lost to darkness, and just kind of somebody becoming darker and darker over time. So I like that escalation that we have got featured within the actual track. Not quite as melodic as some of the other tracks that the band have been releasing, but still has that almost thumping power to it, certainly coming in from the drums, from the guitars as well, just to really add still a strong energy whilst not being overly melodic. But I like that when they're talking about darkness and power, something that you need is that more thumping sound, as something that does have that greater flow to it. So again, just really love the way that they've kind of mixed in some of these instrumentals, but these lyrics are great again in just tying in different ideas and different things. They kind of focus on one point, but they don't really just kind of slap it in your face. They do let you draw your own conclusions and pull in your own ideas, which I really do love. And we can see, as I say, this idea of war, and I like this idea of potentially the tide doesn't have to just be water. They're using these wave references, but again, it's that tides of water, that tides of blood that's being pulled into this track, and we're seeing it with sort of this character with the red eyes and the blade. Like I say, I think they have taken inspiration from the Blade movies, almost with some of these lyrics and with some of these visuals. So it's interesting to see how they are also pulling that in.
You always aim higher. The fool is the fighter. Control the mind. Can't stop the tide from coming. Just gotta keep on running. Keep on running. Can't stop the tide from coming. No use in running from the darker side. It's 'cause you know you.
I gotta touch on I love the Sin City style visuals we have got, where basically they're sort of trapped in these digital worlds, and it's this idea of pulling maybe the blanket over your eyes. You're kind of being washed over again by darkness, and they're using the grey visuals to show that through the visuals. So I really do like a lot of things they're tying into this, making use of, like you say, these Sin City references and things like that. And I think it's this idea that you can look at, this idea of being controlled by something. It doesn't just have to be darkness, but I like the way that you've got these prison cell visuals and this kind of very small enclosed spaces. So it could also be this idea of being trapped in a dark digital world as well. It's something they have explored with Arcadia in the past. So you can draw different things, whether it wants to be war, it wants to be the digital world in which, or digital age in which we live. There's different ways you can look at it depending on your situation. So keeping that ambiguity and really letting you just look at different things and ways that we kind of wage war online sometimes as well. So that could be another angle that you could take from this track.
Can't keep yourself from turning. No use in fighting who you are inside. There's nothing you can do against the tide.
Okay, so it's certainly interesting how we've got a potential new character coming into almost the lore of the band and the history that they have got. So really interesting to see how that's going to develop. Certainly just gives off this very vampiric feel with the red eyes. Or you could look at that almost robot Terminator style. So they like to play with a lot of different things. It's something they've done in the past with much of their music and their videos as well. And certainly doesn't have the quite same instant power, I think, as songs such as Sleepwalking. It doesn't have that same initial powerful draw as some of the other tracks they have released. But I certainly think it's going to be one that is a bit more of a grow. I love to see Chris Adam really upping those vocals, going for those more screamish styles as well. So it'll be interesting to see how it's going to develop after the other tracks that we have heard and whether they will be featured in an album, which I very much imagine will be happening. A couple of other things I really love about this track as well. I love the way that it doesn't really kind of give you a solid idea as to what it's looking at. You have these ideas brought in of war, and it's something that I know the band are quite passionate about the sort of global situation we are in. So they could be looking at political figureheads, they could be looking at the digital age that we do see on Arcadia and Disconnect and pulling that in, and looking at the way that like we're destroying our own world, or we're waging war online with people just really getting into a lot of arguments and things like that, and it can escalate into serious situations. So there's a lot going on with this track and a lot that you can really pick out of it to actually kind of break down and look at and draw different angles from. So something that the band have often done is keep these very ambiguous meanings. Normally they do tend to focus on one idea, and this doesn't really do that in this track. So a bit of a change up for them, kind of having that slightly different different perspective being able to be drawn from the song. So that will be everything for today's video, but as always, please feel free to let me know your thoughts about this track in the comments section below. Also, if you would like to learn more about the band, I did do an album review of their most recent album in the form of Disconnect, and I did take a look at one of their more recent tracks in the form of 6 Feet Under, but definitely worth checking out some of their music videos if you want to know more about this band, about the story of APOC, the Apocalypse DJ, and the journey he's gone through, as well as the band. It is quite an interesting story they take you through, and there's a lot of lore to go with the band. So outside of the music, they do incorporate some really interesting elements into the music videos that are definitely worth a watch, certainly for the thematics and the cinematics that they do include. And as always, if you want to see more content like this, then please do feel free to subscribe, and I will see you in the next audio analysis.